they're actually held to a higher standard. I'll give you a great example. Back when I was,
Then that makes it a bigger problem.
yeah, so back when I was a police officer, we were always required to carry our gun, badge, and ID folder, right? No matter where you are. Let's say I go to the Ritz nightclub. I go to DC Live, right? I've got to carry those things with me. And let's say I have a drink. Now all of a sudden, one drink, but you got somebody walking through the club, bump into me, fine, I don't say anything, but yet he picks a fight with me, right? As a police officer, I have to now walk away, which is fine, I'm totally fine with that. But let's say you have one of those officers who don't walk away and get involved in a confrontation with this guy. Now, the guy that started the fight, the Burger King worker, his job could care less about it. But the police officer, now he has to report that incident to his supervisor and could possibly be put on suspension. So that higher standard is sometimes applied in those situations. And I know people may not see it, but I can't go to somebody's job and accuse them of doing X, Y, and Z and expect their supervisor, their boss to immediately take action. But that happens with police officers. You go into a police station and you accuse Officer X of doing A, B, and C, first thing they're going to do is start an investigation.
It's immediate review. Okay.
And that person may get put on light duty, where they're put in like a non-contact position where they don't have contact with police officers, or they don't have contact with the public. They're not able to exercise any of their police powers. Or it may be one of those situations where they actually take their gun and badge from them.
Okay. So that being the case, that's wonderful. So that enlightened me on in terms of the men held at a higher standard.
Yes.
Okay. However, if she's involved, if she's jacking my car, and she turns to me, and I think she's got a gun,
Yes.
and I take out my gun and I blow her away, and we find out that she does not have a gun, I'm going to get tried for murder.
It depends on the jurisdiction where you are.
Okay.
We've seen that down in Florida where they use the stand your ground law and wasn't charged with murder.
So if okay.
Now, there's certain, so as a police officer, if I am in fear of my life and I have the authority
That seems to be
to protect
enough.
myself, however, that's enough for that situation at the time. However, that incident doesn't go away. That incident can still be presented to a grand jury to see if that officer acted appropriately.
But what I've noticed in the consensus has been from Amadou Diallo in New York City, who shot, or was it Abdul Louima? I can't remember which one. No, Abdul Louima was the one that had the plunger. But Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times, and they said, well, we thought he had. Well, he came up, he showed up, he had a wallet. He could barely speak English, but he saw these 4 Caucasian males. He knew they were police. He went and took out his wallet. One of the policemen stepped on the curb but slipped. And when he slipped, they got nervous. So they all took out their guns. And then the first one went pop, and then the rest of it, I heard a pop. So we thought he had a gun. So then we blew him away 41 times. Now, there's no charge, there's no, and this has been going on and on and on. In other words, on the law, on the books, is I feared for my life a justifiable defense, or is that part of the law that says that policemen can use deadly force because they fear for their lives?
It's not deadly force, it's using the force necessary to de-escalate the situation.
So I think what the problem is that, and what people are having a hard time seeing is, okay, let's just give a person the benefit of the doubt that they were fearful of their life.
Yes.
But the excessive force of de-escalating a problem. And I know that they're taught to verbally de-escalate a situation before using drastic measures, because I actually use that when I teach de-escalation.
Okay. So you got to go back to the training.
But if someone says they're fearful for their life, then that automatically, unless I'm retarded, that automatically means that now I need to use deadly force because I now fear for my life. So what am I de-escalating?
So there are consequences to your actions.
Exactly.
Just because you said you were in fear of your life, that's when now you get tried by those 12. Or your case is presented to a grand jury. Just because you said it doesn't mean it was so.
Exactly.
Just because a guy has a bag of Cheetos.
Well, we saw that in cornbread earlier than me.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Same story.
so just because you say it doesn't get you off the hook. That's just what you
But
say
it
at
has
the
been
time.
getting them off the hook.
Well, that what they said didn't get them off the hook. Maybe their cases were presented to a grand jury,
Maybe
which
the
consists
prosecutor
of
decided
members
not
of,
to. Right.
or the prosecutor decided not to. So those grand jury is going to consist of people from the community.
But there was a review at least.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's not that you go back to the station, you write up a report saying I was fearful for my life, that's why I did X, Y, and Z. It doesn't end there.
Like George Zimmerman did. Right.
Yeah.
I got you.
It doesn't end there. But remember, that's one of those states where he used the Stand Your Ground Act.
And you know what? He did. And he didn't use it.
Yeah.
Because
Well-
had he used it, it actually would have convicted. And I had a panel just like this on my show. And I had an attorney on it to talk about that. He said, this is the misnomer. He didn't use Stand Your Ground. He said if he had used that, he would have been
Give it
convicted.
home.
What he used was, I was defending myself. He didn't use Stand Your Ground.
Defending himself against an unarmed kid.
Defending himself. And what Michael Word, the attorney was Michael Word and Dr. ZaMiya, and what he said was he had the right in the state of Florida to defend himself to whatever extent he felt necessary. Not stand your ground, because it was something totally different. Because they found out that stand your ground was going to fly. So his defense never presented stand your ground. They just said he had to defend himself. And because he was getting beat, he took out a gun and shot him. Attorney Mike Worthy said they can do that in Florida. He said, but however in Maryland, you cannot bring a gun to a fist fight.
And you know, I'll tell you, as a police officer, you getting in a fight and you losing, you just can't pull out your gun to shoot somebody. You take that butt whooping. And you keep fighting until your brothers and sisters come to back you up.
Wow.
I
didn't know that. I thought he could just shoot you.
Oh, no. You keep fighting. Because once you get on the radio and you holler, help me, you send out that officer in distress code, oh, you best believe they're coming. They can be eating their lunch, they cannot like you, but they're going to come to your rescue. And once you hear those sirens coming in the background, the cavalry's there, you're going to fight a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, and then your brothers and sisters are going to have your back. Then just don't push your gun and shoot somebody because you get your butt whooped.
But
So would you, okay, so let's switch this conversation. Let's put a little twist to it.
Okay.
So
wow.
do you see racism inside of the system itself?
Yeah. You see police officers who only arrest black citizens. They can have
No. I'm saying, okay, so the officers,
Yes.
right? Do they show racism in terms of amongst each other? Because what it seems like to me, and we clearly know, that there's a racism, problem when it comes to the police officers and the African American community, or I should say minority communities, because it's not just the African American community, but we know that it definitely exists. Nobody can argue that does not exist.
Right.
But the justification of it always seems to be in favor of the police officer, no matter what the circumstances are. And so they always get off, and so, but then there were a couple of incidents where African American police officers would confront the white police officers or Caucasian police officers about their over excessive behavior towards citizens and things like that, and then they ended up fired, just like the young lady who spoke out against what was going on Facebook. She got fired. Do you all see that racism amongst yourself and when you're working with each other and in the precincts, and if so, how is it dealt with?
Yeah, it's not openly presented in the precincts.
Okay.
But you got to remember, police officers come from the general pool. They're amongst the general population. So those thoughts that they had before they were police officers, they still have those internal thoughts. Yeah.
but they just have enough sense not to act it out
In
inside
front of
of
certain
the family.
people.
Okay. But so then the laws, though, the laws that seem to be protecting them, would you say that there is a
Now, you do realize that I think those police officers who are involved in those unprovoked, deadly shootings should be in jail.
Okay.
They should be fired, they should be in jail.
Mhm.
I do believe that.
Okay.
I don't want you thinking I'm thinking these police officers have a badge or a key, or the key to the city and they can do whatever the heck they want, run them up. No, no.
Well, I think what you're doing is giving us the opportunity to have a different view and a different perspective where we see through the eyes of the police officer, because you haven't had this type of conversation as it relates to this situation. We've been discussing it from a citizen's perspective.
Right.
And so, of course, the citizen perspective is like, oh no, y'all keep letting them get off. But like I said, when you first started talking, you said something very, very, and that it was important for people to consider. The judge dealt with facts pertaining to the law.
Yes.
And so that's a part that we as citizens don't process. All we know is what we see, and y'all letting them off. We don't know the law.
Yeah.
We don't know, well, and so this leads me to the laws. What's in the laws that are protecting this type of behavior? And whatever it is, how do we go about demanding that those laws be revisited and looked at?
Remember in the beginning we talked about those elected officials? Well, we start there because that's where the laws are going to get changed from. So those are the people that you need to protest to. Those are the people you need to petition. Those are the folks you need to address the issues with. They go back and change those laws. And also you hold the mayor and the chief of police accountable. It goes back to the training or lack of training that these officers had. If they had good training, those shootings, those incidents wouldn't happen. They would revert back to the training. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, you get in a fight, you get in your butt whooped, you don't get to pull out your gun. And that's what we've seen a few times. Officers get their butt whooped, pull out the gun, shooting a guy point blank in his chest. Unarmed individual. The wrong individual. No reason to even confront him. Those officers should never work as police officers again. Now they may get fired from that department where they are, but they'll go to another police department and they'll do the same thing.
In the same state?
Sometimes in the same state because it's different jurisdictions.
Wow.
The same state.
So, in cases and instances like that, they shouldn't even be allowed to join another police force. So
Not
that's
at
a
all.
law, right? That we need to look at to say, you know what, when a cop has been convicted or been investigated and found guilty, even if they were not convicted or sentenced to jail time, but they lost their jobs, they should not be able to hold that position ever again in life.
I think it's some domestic violence laws, something that says if you're convicted of a domestic violence offense, you can't carry a weapon, so you can't be a police officer. Same type of law can apply.
So when we go to our elected officials and things like that, because again, the law or the intricate pieces of the law is what the citizens are oblivious to. We
Yes.
have no idea what's in the law. So
And the laws are available for you to read.
that was my question.
They are available online,
Okay.
or you can go by a code, like for DC is the DC code. You can go purchase that. You can go online and purchase it.
Okay.
Anything the police officers have that they use as their guidelines, you can get that as well. It's not a secret. They're publicly available documents.
So again, our lack of knowledge, been uneducated in this instance, because
Well,
we don't know.
I mean, because the kind of education you're talking about is very specific. Law. And I don't know, how many law courses did you get to take in school at any level?
I mean, maybe one or two, depending on what and I'm talking about college.
Yeah.
Depending on what your major is.
So I
You may have to have it.
Depending on, yeah.
So I learned early on why and how important the law is, and how there's a system in place that is designed to keep us from getting that information as well. When I worked at Syracuse University, one of the times I worked there, my responsibility was to get the textbooks for the population of students that we were serving in this particular program. And I would go to the bookstore and I would get the textbooks. You know, I had a voucher. I went, picked up the books for the students, and they would come and get the books, especially in the summertime. I had to deal with these law students. Went to the bookstore. They said, they're not here. I said, we don't carry law books here. Now here's the difference. In the damn bookstore, I can go in there as an ordinary citizen and buy any book that's there. I don't even have to be in that class.
Mm-hmm.
But the law books aren't there. I had to go to the carrier dome where the football and basketball team play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the law books were. In the domes, man.
Why?
Okay, let me restate.
Oh, because you had access to them if you were a regular citizen going in and buying them. So they don't want just anybody going in there buying those law books.
They didn't want anybody,
Yeah.
not regular citizens, regular students buying law books. Now, I'm not saying this is just a Syracuse University thing. This is the reality of the situation. I went in and I bought an economics book, but I wasn't taking
Put in the
economics.
class.
I went in and I bought a book. You know, I mean, sometimes you had to show them your class schedule so that it was consistent with the book that you purchased.
Wow.
But sometimes you didn't. And especially in my case, because I worked for the university, there was very little question about it, because sometimes they would only order enough for the class. But if they had a surplus, you go in and buy a book. But the law books weren't there.
Weren't available.
Couldn't buy them.
Keep you ignorant of the law.
Could not buy them. And
Yes.
I believe this is the case across the country.
And as we see some of these incidents unfold, it is the ignorance of the law that allow these things to escalate.
And the funniest part I heard when I was a child, and you tell me if this is true. As a child, I heard something on one of the TV shows, it might have been, was it Dragnet?
Oh, way back.
Where they said, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You still are held accountable to the law, even though you don't know
it.
And I thought, when I was 7 years old, when I first heard that, I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Is that you're going to hold me accountable to the law. Like, I'm supposed to know what the laws are in PG County when I drive out here and I go do something. Because if I break the law, and I said, well, I didn't know. They say, well, you not knowing is not,
No excuse.
there's no excuse. But yet, I can't get the law books.
Can't get it. You got to find it out on your own.
How?
I got a better one. Let's say you're driving to Virginia Beach from Prince George's County, and you go through Henrico County down in Richmond. You don't know their laws, but guess what? If you're going through that jurisdiction, you're supposed to know that law.
And if you have an open firearm and you're not supposed to have one in that jurisdiction,
Oh goodness, you
you're
got
in trouble.
They got you.
And that jurisdiction can be as big as Forestville,
Mm-hmm.
but they got you.
They got you.
You're supposed to know the law in the jurisdictions that you don't even live in.
Yeah.
You're going to be held accountable to that. Come on, man.
You may have that permit to carry in Maryland or Virginia, but you don't have it to carry in DC.
Now it's senseless. So what happens is the elite folks of America who have the capital, they don't have to do. You know what?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doc. Take it away.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
See, I realized a long time ago I break laws every day.
Oh, everyone.
And don't
Everybody.
know it.
Yes.
Everybody.
Right? So it all depends on the will of whoever checks me on that,
Mhm.
whether or not they want to bring me in front of Mr. Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
But the folks especially who have the economic wherewithal,
Mm-hmm.
they're rarely brought in front of the courts for those same violations that those of us who are middle or lower in socioeconomic status.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know the law either,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not held.
They're not held to that.
They're not held to the law.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good example.